All right, let's solve a puzzle. Today, we've got three different stories. One from history, one from politics, and one from economics. And on the surface, they seem to have absolutely nothing in common. But you're about to see the one single, really powerful idea that links them all together.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Think about it. The founding of America, right? All those heated arguments you see on the news every single night, and a simple economic graph. I mean, at first glance, they seem like they're from completely different planets, don't they? So what on earth could be the common thread here?
And this slide, well, it kind of illustrates the mystery perfectly. Over on the left, you've got a map of European colonization from centuries ago. On the right, a totally modern chart tracking China's economic growth. And smack dab in the middle of it all is the deep political division we're all living through. So what's the secret connection? Stick with me, because we're about to figure it out.
Okay, our first clue is going to take us back in time. We're starting with the founding of the United States, and more specifically, with the story that pretty much all of us think we know. You know, when most of us think about America's founding, an image kind of like this probably pops into our heads. The arrival of European settlers, forging a new nation in a new world. And this is the dominant story, right? It's a powerful narrative about discovery and courage and creation. It's a great story for sure. But let's dig a little deeper. But here's where we have to pause and ask a couple of questions. Is this the whole story? And maybe even more important, whose perspective is it being told from? Because whoever is telling the story, well, they have the power to shape how every single one of us understands the past.
And this right here, this reveals what's so often missing. On the left, you see the complex, long-established Native American nations that were here long before any Europeans arrived. And on the right, the huge, brutal network of the Atlantic slave trade. See, these aren't just side notes to the main event. They are foundational stories themselves, but they're often silenced or just totally ignored in that traditional narrative.
So the crucial point here is that history isn't just a list of facts. It's a story that is built piece by piece. And being a critical thinker means you have to ask these questions about any story you hear. Who's telling it? Who's being left out? And how was this whole thing put together in the first place? This is the first major piece of our puzzle. Now for our second clue. We're going to jump from the distant past right into the heart of the political division we all see around us today. This quote from Professor Suzanne Mettler, wow, it just frames our second clue perfectly. She points out that the divide in politics today isn't just about having different opinions anymore. It's become this fundamental us versus them conflict, a clash of identities that's reshaping the entire political landscape. The technical term for this is political polarization, and it goes way, way beyond just disagreeing on policy. It's what happens when people start living in completely different realities, fed by different information, and believing in fundamentally different stories about their own country. And there it is. There's the connection to our first clue. Just like with the founding of America, where we have different stories depending on the perspective, in modern politics we see groups living inside their own competing narratives. Each story has its own heroes, its own villains, and, this is crucial, its own set of facts. It's a battle of stories, and it's happening right now. Okay, so we've seen this in history and politics. That makes sense. But numbers are supposed to be objective, right? Just cold, hard data. Well, our third and final clue is going to challenge that very idea. Take a look at this chart. It's supposed to show China's annual GDP growth. Simple enough. But hang on a second. There are three different lines here. One is the official number that comes from China. The other two, they're from independent groups. So the question becomes, which one tells the real story? Well, the answer is that each line is being used to tell a completely different story. The line that China reports tells a narrative of stability and just unstoppable growth. It's a story designed to project strength. The other lines, though, they tell a different story. One that's a bit messier, more volatile, and reflects the real ups and downs of the global economy. So even with data, we have competing narratives. All right, let's put it all together. A founding story, a deep political divide, and an economic chart. It is time to solve this puzzle. And here it is. The single, powerful thread connecting everything is the concept of competing narratives. Whether we're looking at history or politics or even economics, what we understand to be true is so often just a story, one that's constructed from a very specific point of view. And more often than not, there's more than one story out there.
So what's the big takeaway here? How do we use this? Well, we can empower ourselves with a kind of toolkit for critical thinking. Anytime you hear a story, see a news report, look at a chart, just ask these 4 questions. Who is telling this? Is there another side? Whose voice is missing? And if you're looking at data, what story are these numbers really being used to tell?
And that brings us to one final thought. The danger isn't that there are competing stories out there. The real danger is believing there is only one. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. What is one single story you've always just taken for granted? And what truths might you uncover if you actually went looking for the other side?